How can we even talk about God if God is so infinitely transcendent to us? I'm going to attempt to provide an answer for this. This is Mere Catholicism. I'm Marcus Peter. Our language is limited. And the limitation of our language means that we need to learn how to talk about God properly, because while we are limited and our language is more limited than we are, God is infinite and infinitely transcendent. He has no limit. The only limitation that is found in God is that which he imposes upon himself, which we'll talk about in a future episode. So how can we use language to speak about God? Let's take a look at what the compendium has to say. Paragraph 5, the compendium tells us this: by taking as our starting point the perfections of man and of other creatures, which are a reflection, albeit a limited one, of the infinite perfection of God, we are able to speak about God with all people. We must, however, continually purify our language insofar as it is image-bound and imperfect, realizing that we can never fully express the infinite mystery of God. In other words, we have to speak about God. Because in speaking about God, we get to communicate these transcendent truths that bring about our salvation, the gospel message. But in doing so, and we need to be very careful about this, in doing so we have to be precise. Our language must be purified. And in the purification of that language, we need to avoid error and speak in the language of the church. And that's why thank God for the gift of the magisterium. Dei Verbum, the Second Vatican Council spoke to us, paragraph 2. This economy of revelation is realized by deeds and words, which are intrinsically bound up with each other. The words proclaim the works and bring to light the mystery they contain. In the Summa Theology, St. Thomas Aquinas tells us this: by revelation, the truths necessary for salvation are made known to men in a way that exceeds human reason, but are nevertheless expressed in words, so that they may be shared, taught, and believed. And this is why we have to preach. This is why we are given the Divine Commission. We have to tell people about God, even using our limited language, to the best of our abilities, trusting the grace of God to do this. Now, there are 3 categories of language when we speak about God. Univocal language, which simply means that if I say God is love or God is a father, I'm thinking of my human father. That's not accurate. God is eminently elevated from my human father. Equivocal language. If I say God is father and my human father is father, they are different, but there are some similarities. Equivocal means they are completely different. So what's the middle ground here? St. Thomas Aquinas provides us with analogical language, which means that while there are similarities, there are infinite differences. When I say God is father, he is like my human father. That's a similarity, but he is infinitely more elevated. That's the analogy. That God is father in an infinitely greater way than my human father will ever be, than I as a father will ever be. So when we speak about God and we say God is love, his love isn't like human love. There's something similar, but there's an infinite difference. That's the language of analogy. So when we speak about God, realize we're using analogous language and utilize that prudently, wisely, but also fervently, that we may preach these truths for the salvation of souls to the ends of the earth. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Marcus Peter.